Good day, viewers. Welcome to this class. And today we'll be looking at IGCSE Physics past questions. So the first question here says, which physical quantity is measured in Newton? Which physical quantity is measured in Newton? And the physical quantity that is measured in Newton was named after Sir Isaac Newton. And that physical quantity was based on the work that Sir Isaac Newton did. And looking at the options here, the physical quantity that is named after Sir Isaac Newton is force, which is option B. So that is also question number 2. Question number 2 says, the slope of a distance time graph represents dash. The slope of a distance time graph represents dash. So the slope of a distance time graph is simply telling us that I have change in distance over change in time. And change in distance to change in time is simply saying distance over time. And if I'm having distance over time, this is the same thing as what? Speed. So the rate of change of distance is what? Speed. So the slope of a distance time graph is what? Speed. And that is option B. So that is also question number 3, which is, what is the acceleration due to gravity on Earth? The acceleration due to gravity on Earth is simply 9.8 meters per second squared, and that is option A. So that takes us to question number 4, which says, a car travels 100 kilometers in 2 hours. Its average speed is, so we are given the distance traveled by the car as 100 kilometers, and the time it takes to cover this distance is 2 hours. So our average speed is simply distance over time, and that is saying that I have 100 kilometers divided by 2, which will mean that I have what? 50 kilometers per hour. So the average speed is simply 50 kilometers per hour, and that is option B. So that takes us to question number 5, which says, which device is used to measure electric current? Which device is used to measure electric current? Option A says the voltmeter. The voltmeter is used for measuring voltage. Option B says the ammeter. Option C says the thermometer. Option D says the barometer. The thermometer is used for measuring temperature, and the barometer is used for measuring pressure or atmospheric pressure. So the correct answer to this question is option B. The ammeter is used for measuring current. So option B is the correct answer. So that takes us to question number 6, which is, what is the unit of electric charge? The unit of electric charge is coulomb, named after Sir Coulomb. So the unit of electric charge is coulomb. That is what? Option B. So that takes us to question number 7, which says, which type of energy is stored in stretched spring? Which type of energy is stored in stretched spring? In a stretched spring, what you have is elastic potential energy. So in a stretched spring, you have your elastic potential energy. It is elastic because a spring is usually what? Elastic, from Hooke's law of elasticity. So inside that spring, you have what? Potential energy. And because it is elastic, that's why we call it what? Elastic potential energy. So the correct answer here is option B, which is what? Potential energy. So that takes us to question number 8. Question number 8, which says, sound waves are an example of dash. Sound waves are an example of dash. Your sound waves are called longitudinal waves. Why are they called longitudinal waves? They travel in the same direction as the particles causing the wave. So the particles travel in the same direction as the wave motion itself. So that's why we call them what? Longitudinal waves. They are not transverse waves. They are not traveling in opposite directions to the direction of the particles of the waves. They are not transverse waves, and they are not polarized waves. Then there are the electromagnetic waves because they are mechanical waves. So therefore, the correct answer to this question is option B, which is what? Longitudinal waves. So that takes us to question number 9, which says, what happens to the pressure of a gas when volume decreases at constant temperature? What happens to the pressure of a gas when volume decreases at constant temperature. So what they're telling you here is that I have a relationship between, so remember that from Boyle's law, we said that what? We said that the volume of a gas is inversely proportional to the pressure of a gas, provided that what temperature is remaining constant. As in this case, this is what obeying that law, and this is what Boyle's law. And because of the inverse proportionality, when there is an increase in pressure, there will be a decrease in volume. But in this case, they are asking us, what happens to the pressure of the gas when the volume decreases? So if the volume decreases, the pressure will increase. So they are working in opposite direction. So if there is a decrease in volume, automatically there will be what? An increase in pressure. So when the volume decreases, the pressure increases. So the correct answer is option A. So that is also question number 10, which says, which ray is bent most when white light passes through a prism? Now, when light passes through a prism, a triangular prism, it is dispersed into several colors we call Roy beam. This is red, this is orange, this is yellow, we have green, we have blue, we have indigo, and we have violet. And they are arranged in order of their dispersion, which means the last color here is the most bent when passed through the prism. So if you look at this, since we do not have in our option, we do not have violet, we do not have indigo, then the next one we're looking for is blue. So the color that is most bent when light passes through a prism here is blue, because since we do not have indigo and we do not have what? Violet. So the correct answer to this question is B, which is what? Blue. So that takes us to question number 11, which says, a transformer is used to dash. A transformer is used to dash. Now, a transformer can either be in two forms. It can either be a step-up transformer or a step-down transformer. So it is used to increase the voltage. So transformers are generally used to increase or decrease voltage. So the correct answer to this question is increase or decrease the voltage. A step-up transformer increases the voltage, while a step-down transformer reduces the voltage. So the correct answer here is option B. So that is also question number 12, which says, which force opposes the motion of object through air? Which force opposes the motion of object through air? The force that opposes the motion of object through air is called a drag force. The drag force. So the force that opposes the motion of object when that object is moving in the air is called the force called what? Drag. So the correct answer to this question is option C. So that takes us to question number 13, which says the energy changes in a hydroelectric power station are, so in a hydroelectric power station, the energy changes are from potential energy down to kinetic energy and then to electrical energy. Why is it like that? The water falls from a height. So as it's falling from a height, it possesses what? Potential energy before it starts falling. When it hits the ground, at that point where it is falling to the ground, it possesses kinetic energy. And when it hits the turbines convert that kinetic energy with which it is turning toward electrical energy. So it moves from potential energy to kinetic energy and then to electrical energy. So the correct answer to this question is option B. So that is also question number 14. We say a car accelerates from rest to 20 meters per second in 5 seconds. Its acceleration is dash. So we know that acceleration is unknown. They gave us the velocity, final velocity as 20 meters per second. We are given the initial velocity as 0 because we are told that the car accelerates from rest. And the time for the acceleration is 5 seconds. So we know that our acceleration is final velocity minus initial velocity divided by time. And that will give me 20 minus 0 divided by 5, and that will give me 4 meter per second square. So the correct answer to this question is 4 meter per second square, which is option B. So that takes us to question number 15, which says, what is the SI unit of power? What is the SI unit of power? We know that power is work done over time, or you can say energy over time. So if power is work done over time or energy over time, you can also say that the unit of power is joules per second. So, and joules per second, another name for joules per second is watts. So the unit of power here is watts, and that is option B. Moving on to question number 16, which says the north pole of a magnet will repel dash. The north pole of a magnet will repel its like pole, because the law of magnetism states that like poles repel and unlike poles attract. So the north pole will only repel a north pole. So the north pole of a magnet will repel a north pole, which is option A. So the correct answer to this question is option A. What property of waves is measured in hertz? What property of wave is measured in hertz? Option A says wavelength. Wavelength is measured in meters, it's talking about length. Option C says amplitude. Amplitude is talking about what? Vertical distance. So it is measured in meters. Option D says speed. This is speed. Everybody knows speed. It is measured in meter per second. So the correct answer to this question is frequency. Frequency is measured in hertz. Frequency is measured in hertz. So that's option B. So that takes us to question number 18, which says which part? So that is question number 18, which says which part of the electromagnetic spectrum has the shortest wavelength? Now, in the electromagnetic spectrum, you discover that the gamma rays have the least wavelength. They may have the highest energy, but they have the least wavelength. So they have the least wavelength in the electromagnetic spectrum. That is what option D. So that takes us to the next question, which is question number 19. Question number 19 says, what is the main energy loss in an electric motor? What is the main energy loss in an electric motor? An electric motor loses most of its energy via heat that is generated within the coils of the motor. So the main energy loss in an electric motor is heat energy. That is what option B. So that takes us to question number 20, which says, which of the following is a scalar quantity? Which of the following is a scalar quantity? A scalar quantity is a quantity that has only magnitude but no direction. It has only magnitude and no direction. Option A says force. Force is equal to mass times acceleration. And we know that acceleration is the rate of change of velocity. And we say that what? Velocity is the rate of change of displacement. And displacement has both magnitude and direction. Because displacement has both magnitude and direction, automatically it means that velocity also has what? Both magnitude and direction. Which also implies that what? Acceleration has what? Both magnitude and direction. Which automatically makes what? Force a vector quantity, because it contains what? Acceleration, and acceleration in turn contains velocity. Velocity in turn contains displacement. And displacement is what? A vector quantity. So any quantity that contains a vector quantity automatically becomes a vector quantity. So because if you trace their lineage from here, you discover that what? Automatically, because all of them are what? Traced back to displacement here, it means that velocity, acceleration, and force are what? Vector quantity. So the only quantity that is not a vector quantity here is mass. And that is what? Option D. So that takes us to question number 21, which says the process of heat transfer in a vacuum is dash. What is a vacuum? A vacuum is what? Free space. So free space is simply what we call what? Vacuum. So how do you transfer heat in free space? Remember that we have three methods of what? Heat transfer. We have what is called conduction, we have convection, and we have radiation. While conduction talks about what? Transfer of heat with contact of bodies, and is mostly common with solid particles. Convection talks about transfer of heat within fluid, either in liquid or in gaseous form, and that is what? Mostly in fluids. While radiation talks about transfer of heat without actual contact, that's what? In a vacuum or free space. So the correct answer to this question of heat transfer in a vacuum is what? Radiation, and that is what? Option C, radiation. Moving on to the next question. It says, what is the purpose of a fuse in an electric circuit? What is the purpose of a fuse in an electric circuit? Now, in the previous video that we did, we answered a question that talks about what value of fuse are we going to use for an electric heater or an electric cooker. And in that video, we did a calculation where I told you that the amount of fuse that you are using must be higher than the total amount of current that is flowing in that cooker. Same thing here. So why are we using that higher amount of fuse? It's so that you can what? Protect that cooker against excess current. So that the current that is flowing in that cooker will not be what? Excess. So if the current is excess and gets to the cooker, it can damage the cooker. So the fuse there is to what? Protect the what? Cooker from excess current. So the correct answer to this question is protect against excess current, and that is what? Option B. Moving on to the next question. It says, which particle has a negative charge? Which particle has a negative charge? And we know that an atom contains proton, we have neutron, we have electrons. And we know that both the protons and the neutrons are the center of the atom. So if this is an atom, now the center here contains your protons plus neutrons. Your neutrons are without charges. They are chargeless. Your protons are positively charged. And because the protons is together with the neutrons within the nucleus, automatically it means that the nucleus here will become what? Positively charged. So in order for the electrons to remain within this orbit, to remain within these shells, they have to be what? Negatively charged. So that there will be a force of attraction between the nucleus and the electrons in order to keep them in their shells. So the correct answer to this question is the word electrons. The electrons are what? Negatively charged, and that is what? Option C. Moving on. Question number 24 says, the bending of light as it passes from one medium to another is called dash. The bending of light as it passes from one medium to another is called dash. Now, the first option there is reflection. Reflection is not the bending of light. Reflection is the redirection of light when it hits an obstacle. So, when light is reflected, it means when it hits an obstacle, it bounces back from the obstacle. That is what? Reflection. While diffraction is when it bends around the obstacle and passes through, using either a small aperture or a large aperture. While dispersion is the separation of light, of white light into different colors. So the last option here is what? Refraction. Refraction is the bending of light when it passes from one medium to another. So when light passes from air to glass, for example, it what? It refracts. So it bends. So the correct answer to that question is refraction, which is option C. So that takes us to question number 25. We say, which of the following is not a renewable energy source? A renewable energy source is a type of energy source that can replenish itself. So when it is used up, it is what? Easily replenishable. And the first one is the solar energy. That's what? Energy from the sun. It is easily replenishable. We have the wind energy. It is also easily replenishable as wind is not controlled. So we also have the hydroelectric energy. You can continuously produce hydroelectric energy so long as there's water. So it is easily replenishable. So the one that is not easily replenishable, that is not a renewable energy source, is coal. When you use it up, that is it. You cannot what? You cannot turn the ashes back to the coal and replenish it. So it is what? Non-replenishable or non-renewable, and that is option C. So that is question number 26, which says a speed time graph with a horizontal line indicates dash. What are they telling us? That if I have a speed time graph, let's say this is a speed time graph now. This is speed and this is time. And they are telling us that it has a horizontal line. So this is a horizontal line. What type of graph is this? Is what they're asking us. So a speed time graph with a horizontal line is a constant speed graph. It's indicating that there is constant speed. There is no change in the speed. So assuming it is slanting upward, it would have been what? A constant acceleration graph. But it is not slanting upward, and it is what? Moving horizontally, so automatically it's a constant speed graph. So the correct answer to this question is constant speed, which is option B. So that takes us to the next question, which is question number 27. The question says, the force that keeps planets in orbit around the sun is dash. The force that keeps planets in orbit around the sun is called dash. Now, around the sun, all planets are moving in elliptical orbits that is held together by gravity, according to their what? Centripetal force. So the centripetal force there is centripetal force of gravity. So the correct answer to this question is gravitational force. So gravitational force has what? A stronghold that keeps all planets in their orbit, so that what? Jupiter doesn't collide with Mercury or Venus colliding with Earth. So they remain in their orbit as a result of what? Gravitational force. That is what? Option B. So that takes us to the next question, which is question number 28. What is the relationship between current, voltage, and resistance? The relationship between current, voltage, and resistance is based on Ohm's law, where Sir Ohm said that the on. So that is also question number 28, which says, what is the relationship between current, voltage, and resistance? The relationship between current, voltage, and resistance was stated by Sir Ohm, where he said that the current passing through a metallic conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference across both ends of the conductor, provided temperature and other physical quantities remain constant. What was he saying? Mathematically, Sir Ohm was saying that the potential difference V is directly proportional to the current passing through a metallic conductor. Now, anytime you have a sign of proportionality, in order to remove this sign of proportionality, you introduce a constant. And the constant that we used in Ohm's law was Ohm's constant, which is also known as what? Resistance, which means that V is equals to what? IR. So Sir Ohm stated this law, and this is the relationship binding what? Voltage, current, and resistance, which is what? Ohm's law. So the correct answer to this question is option A, which says that what? V is equals to what? IR, according to Ohm's law. Moving on to the next question, question number 29. It says, the echo held in a large empty hall is due to dash. The echo held in a large empty hall is due to dash. Now, echo is simply a bounce back of sound. So if you go to a very large hall and the hall is empty and you clap your hands, after a few seconds, you are going to hear the clap back, as though the walls of the hall were clapping back after you clapped your hands. That is what? Reflection of sound. So immediately you clap your hand, the sound traveled to the end of the hall. And when it hit the wall, it bounced back. Hence, it took some time before you heard the sound. So likewise, if you shout within that hall, after some time you hear what? The sound. That is echo. So that is what? Reflection of sound. So the correct answer to this question is what? Reflection of sound, which is what? Option A. So that takes us to the next question, which says, which instrument is used to measure atmospheric pressure? Which instrument is used to measure atmospheric pressure? Option A there says what? Thermometer. The thermometer is used for measuring temperature. Option D there said hygrometer. The hygrometer is used for measuring relative humidity. And then we have option C, which says what? Ammeter. The ammeter is used for measuring current. And then the last one, the barometer, is used for measuring atmospheric pressure. I believe you have enjoyed this class. If you have any question, drop it in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification bell for notifications when we drop new videos just like this.
Hi, I'm sure you enjoyed the content you just watched. To see more episodes as that, preparing you for your oncoming exams, smash the subscribe button on this channel right now and visit the playlist that we've made for you, covering over 50 type of different exams, including JAMB, WAEC, Kakao, NEET, IALT, and the likes like that. Also, in every video you watch, we have the link to our apps where you can download on Google Play Store and Apple Play Store and practice hundreds of past questions for free.